SROA Soundboard, SROA's podcast for radiation oncology administrators. I'm Tammy McCausland. Jana Grienke is joining us today for our In Conversation with Administrators series. Jana is Clinical Operations Director in the Department of Radiation Oncology at the University of Iowa Hospitals. Welcome, Jana.
Hi, Tammy.
Can you tell me briefly about your journey to your current position?
Sure. I went to college at the University of Iowa, and when I graduated, I was trying to figure out what my next steps would be, and I actually was looking at law school, and I thought, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go directly back into school or what I wanted to do, so I thought that I would take a year off to maybe work and then kind of decide after that. So I got a position at the University of Iowa Hospitals and just kind of working as support staff in the Department of Ophthalmology, actually. And working there for about a year, I transferred to pediatrics and became a charge capture specialist, and decided that I really liked working in healthcare, and so put off going back to school right away. And 8 years later, there was a job opening in radiation oncology. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I knew nothing about radiation oncology, but the job description sounded very interesting, and it was a position that would enable me to use my kind of back-end charge capture skills as well as front-end reception scheduling kind of workflow. And it was one of the first positions that allowed someone to kind of be a focus from the front end to the back end in a clinic. And so I applied, and I was hired, and that was 18 years ago. And since then, I worked myself from that, then it was called a program specialist, up until now I'm the Director of Operations over the clinic in the department. So it has been an interesting evolution. In between there, I went back and got my MHA, but yeah, I think I did not expect to, one, go into healthcare, two, to stay in healthcare, and then three, to kind of find my place in radiation oncology.
Pretty interesting journey that you've taken to end up where you are. What do you like about being in a leadership position?
Sure. I would say really the teamwork of it all. I think everyone who works in radiation really understands that concept. I think a lot of other areas talk about it, but really in radiation you get to see it, and you really do get to live it, because there are such different groups in one somewhat smaller department, from the frontline staff to nursing to therapy to residents to faculty. We have a whole research arm, so to our biologists, our MD, PhDs, charge capture, research nurses and coordinators. I mean, it really truly epitomizes the multidisciplinary approach to patient care in one department. So I think being in a leadership role in a department like that is very challenging. It's very satisfying. Every day it seems like we all, learn something new from each other, or just kind of in general from, radiation oncology sources, in general. But I would say that probably to me is the best part of my job, just being able to work with that many diverse groups every day.
And what do you find most challenging about leadership, especially in radiation oncology? You've touched on all the different disciplines or groups that you have to work with, but what do you find in particular to be the most challenging?
So I would say probably that same answer. Although it's the most rewarding, sometimes it can be the most challenging. We really work hard to not be siloed within those teams, but sometimes you are. So I think as a leader, you really work to ensuring that goes away and everyone works together. I think we also find, and I think it's true in life as well, that each group might have a different agenda. And so as a leader, again, it's really up to you to make sure that we all have the same agenda, and that really is working towards that goal of ensuring that we provide the safest patient care. So I would say, yeah, it's both the most rewarding and probably the most challenging.
What do you think has helped you be effective as a leader?
I think having good examples of leaders, not only within the department, but just, I would say, since I work in a university, I would say across the institution. I also have a role in frontline operations over the entire hospital. So being able to access the resources from other leaders in other departments, in hospital administration, from our college administration as well, of just seeing really good examples of leaders, and frankly, maybe seeing those not so great examples and knowing how not to handle something also helps. I think always willing to be able to admit to yourself that you don't know everything and that you do need help, you do need guidance, and reaching out to people, reaching out to organizations, reaching out to get different resources, online, or, reading different leadership books. I think with COVID, it gave us very good examples of some leadership across the nation of certain states that you were able to kind of watch and kind of emulate and look at the different qualities that people were able to utilize during a pandemic. I think this last year has been interesting to see some leaders that have come to the forefront that maybe in the past we really wouldn't have noticed.
How do you plan to grow your career from here?
Oh, that's a good question. It's when you get to the position that I'm currently in a department, I'm kind of topped out, right? Like there is no step above where I am in the department. So what then I think looking at to the future is how can I just grow myself? How can I make myself better? How can I make the department better? not necessarily, pushing forward to a different position, but really trying to make myself and my current position the best that it can be. And I think, too, again, having some flexibility within the institution itself for being that department that other departments look to get best practices for patient satisfaction or workflows or different committees that we have started in radiation oncology that other departments have since implemented. So I think making our success global, we kind of have a joke in our department by saying we strive for total world domination, and that we all kind of keep that in the back of our minds and thinking, okay, how can we make ourselves better to then be able to make others better?
Those are very good points. Do you think younger administrators who are just starting out need to figure out that what you've said, basically how they can grow within their position, and then also figuring out maybe as high as they want to grow? Maybe not everybody wants to be a VP or a CEO, and to be able to be okay with that, but still grow within a role.
Yeah, I think do I think that's something that they need to figure out right away? No. But I do think that's something to think about at some point. I mean, as a new administrator, sometimes you're just thinking about the next day and how to get through it. But, looking to the future, I think it is a good thing to think about for someone. And frankly, I think people know themselves well enough to know what or if that is something that they want to pursue. Some people look at a job as a stepping stone to something next, or feel that this is what I was meant to do. This kind of is my niche. I want to stay in this department and make it the best that I can make it, not only for themselves and their career, but also, to develop the careers of the other people in the department. And I think, looking at a director or an administrator of a radiation department, you can be that good example for some of those kind of middle management staff to be able to set an example for them and show them kind of how to make their positions robust and, grow in their positions as well.
What professional organizations do you belong to and why?
So currently, SROA, I am on the board. I have been at two different times in my life on the board as a member at large, and then just more recently within the last couple of years, president-elect, president, chair, and now I've transitioned to an advisor on the board. I think because of that commitment, I really haven't looked into other organizations, just for the fact that it really does encompass everything, frankly, that I need to know. And so it's a really good go-to for all things radiation oncology. I feel that if, I would have a focus maybe as a more global cancer center, then I would look to different organizations there as well. But we really do in SROA have our the ability to reach out to different organizations like the, AAMD or AAPM and, ASTRO and different organizations like that. You don't necessarily need to be a member, but you still can have those contacts to be able to glean some resources from.
Who inspires you and why?
Oh, gosh. I think it depends on the day. I think I'm one of those people who wouldn't necessarily list a person, I would say, that inspires me, but more traits in people that inspire me. So I would say, traits like loyalty, or we had spoke about leadership. Charity right now is a big thing, just, during COVID, of seeing people give back. Clearly generosity goes hand in hand with that as well. Kindness and honesty and perseverance. Faithfulness, I guess, to me too, people who know me, I appreciate humor, so I think that gets us a long way. But then also, dealing with the patients that we see, seeing patients who have cancer and coming in every day and fighting it, especially we see pediatric patients here as well, and seeing those kiddos come in and being so strong for themselves and their parents, like, how can that not inspire anyone?
That's beautiful. What do you like to do in your free time?
Lately it doesn't seem like I have a lot of free time, and if I do, again, I hate to keep going back to COVID, but, there aren't all of the options that maybe that we had before, like traveling and kind of doing stuff like that. But so I'll do a pre and post COVID. So pre-COVID, clearly traveling, love to travel. Just seeing people in general, just being able to go out and, meet people and have, dinner, just be able to chat outside of work. I'm a big sports nut, so being able to go to different sporting events. We have a pretty good Hawkeye team here at the University of Iowa. Our wrestling team won the national championship this year, and usually we go to that every year, but this year because of COVID we weren't able to. But being able to see it on TV, same with our basketball and football, not being able to go to the games, but, being able to watch it on TV. Post-COVID, FaceTiming is a big thing now, right? Like with my family who are all in Northwest Iowa, and friends and family across the United States. Along with sports, I sadly am a big reality TV fan. So watching those shows give me some comfort as well. But yeah, that's kind of my day-to-day right now.
That's great. What about your reading? What are you reading currently, and do you have a favorite book you would recommend?
Yeah, so, when the weather is nice, so here in Iowa, that, limits itself to not too many months out of the year, but when the weather gets nice, I love just to sit out on my porch with a book and just, sit out there for hours. Hasn't been that nice yet, but hopefully in the next, month, that will start to become a thing. But currently, I just started a book called, I think it's pronounced Annalise or Analyze. So it's the book that talks about what if Anne Frank survived the Holocaust. So it talks about that she survived the concentration camps and then gets reunited with her father. And so it's an interesting book that, as a kid, so I come from a very Dutch family, and the hometown that I'm in was started by Dutch immigrants, and traveling to Holland as a kid, and I remember seeing Anne Frank's house and how that was very touching to me, and reading the diary of Anne Frank as a kid. And so this book, I'm hoping, like I said, I just kind of started, but interesting to see what that might have looked like if she, as a 16-year-old child surviving the Holocaust, what she would grow into as an adult. So I'm very excited to get more into that book.
That's great. And what's on your playlist?
So I would say I have a pretty short commute to work, so a lot of times I walk, and I usually listen to podcasts. If I'm in the car for an extended period of time, like when I travel back to see my family in Northwest Iowa, I usually like to listen to more talk radio rather than music. So different podcasts. I know everyone likes the different, crime podcasts. Criminal is a great podcast. It does like 30-minute podcasts about all different sorts of different cases. I love NPR. And again, clearly the reality TV podcasts and talk shows that are on Sirius XM. Music-wise, sadly, I am still such an 80s gal that I listen to the 80s station all the time. Sometimes we'll flip to the 70s for my parents' era, but really stick to that 80s. There are a couple of, I would say, artists, now that I enjoy, but as a go-to, I stick to the 80s.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Gosh, I think because I'll go back to my sports kind of fanaticism a little bit. So ever since I was in kindergarten, I loved the Green Bay Packers. And so, anyone who follows the Packers also probably has many quotes from Vince Lombardi that have followed them throughout their lives as well. So one of the ones that I think about often and that I actually have hanging in my office that I'm looking at right now is life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. And so I think about that all the time, about, having a positive attitude, having appropriate self-confidence, just in general, knowing that it's not going to be easy, that life does have battles, whether that's personal or professional, but that if you really believe in yourself, that you will be the one who wins.
That's a great quote.
Yeah.
My last question is, based on everything you've learned over your career and your life, what advice would you offer others?
I guess I would say maybe a couple of things. It's that cliche, don't sweat the small stuff. I totally believe in that. And I think as you not necessarily age, but gain experience, I think you really do understand what that truly means. So I think thinking about that, I think one of the other things that I think about all the time too is, so I talked about my playlist a little, and frankly, I tell people that when I grow up, I want to be Lizzo. Like, I love her mm-hmm. and what she stands for and her self-confidence. And one of her quotes that I also have hanging up by Vince Lombardi is, just about anybody is a big girl in a small world, but you got to believe it on the inside that you can be bigger than the rest of it. So I think that's similar to what Vince also says, that you, with your positive attitude, with self-confidence, you believe in yourself, that you can be bigger than anything that you have to face.
Everything that you've said today has been fabulous. I'm sure other administrators will take a page from the great stuff you've shared. So I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Tammy. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to SROA Soundboard. We hope you will join us again. For more information, visit www.sroa.org.